What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show from the Valley to the Mountaintop podcast. I'm your host, Micah Gibson. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome, welcome, welcome. On this podcast, we interview business owners to see the ins and outs on what it took to build their particular business. I hope you brought your pen and pad because we have a special guest in the building. I'm going to let him introduce himself and his company. And while you're ready, sir, give us a little bit of background on your upbringing.
Awesome. Hey, well, Mike, I appreciate that. My name is Mark, and I am here in Oklahoma City, right in the middle of the country. And I own Patriot Outdoors, basically a lawn and landscape company that does essentially what is called landscape maintenance. We just do pretty much what a lot of other companies do. We mow, edge, weed, eat, blow, flower beds, hedge trimming, weed control, fertilization, that kind of stuff. And in addition to that, on the side, I operate what's called Lawn Care Growth Academy. And both of those businesses came about for different reasons. But the goal with each one, I still love mowing the lawns. I still love getting my hands on it, taking care of it. But if someone doesn't do the back end of it, it ends up eating you alive, and it ceases to be as much fun. And so as I did that, I began to get lots of questions, and people would ask, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And that was kind of the impetus of Lawn Care Growth Academy, just to kind of help other people grow and learn and be able to answer questions. And so, yeah, that's how we got here today. Is there something kind of specific you'd like me to
Well,
focus on, Mike? I'd be happy to answer some questions, buddy.
yeah, right. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: out of all the businesses, what made you decide to choose lawn care to get into?
Well, um, lawn care has always been fun. I think it probably came from the fact that my dad and I, when we were little, I would go out and I would mow mow the lawn with my dad, and I think just his support and his good, I don't know, his support, his positive reinforcement that I could do a good job. I think it just kind of was instilled in me, and so I did that as a kid, and then about 2017, I kind of started playing with it regularly and kind of started finding some customers, and it
Hmm.
kind of began to grow by itself. Um, but I still had a full-time job, and really during COVID, I
Hmm.
lost my full-time job. And
Wow.
then I thought this may be the time to do it, and that's when we jumped in and started doing it with both feet.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this: did you already have a pretty solid clientele base before you lost the job, or it was kind of iffy?
Well, it was a little bit of both. I think I wanted to grow the lawn care business because I enjoyed it so much, but it was small enough that I was able to basically mow everything I wanted on the weekend
Hmm.
and then work during the week and not really have to worry about any um, back end admin stuff. I didn't have to worry much about watching my numbers. I didn't worry much about marketing or location or route density. I didn't worry about any of those things.
Hmm.
And I just mowed because it was fun. But I still probably generated mm, 25, 18 to 25 customers, but we would do that on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
And so for me, I think what really kind of was the telltale sign is that I would go to work on Monday waiting to get to the weekend so I could go out and mow again. So I knew that
Right.
there was something there.
All right. Now,
So
how did you go about picking up your clients?
yeah, I think the maybe it was just kind of luck, but I mean there was still work involved. But I think doing it and enjoying it so much, I think customers and clients just begin to kind of recognize that there was a passion more involved than just at the time I wasn't depending upon it. And
Hmm.
so I didn't really think about how long it took me. I didn't really think about trying to be quick. I just wanted to do a good job and have fun with it.
Right.
And customers begin to kind of come out, approach me. And it just kind of happened that they were already near clients that I was already taking care of.
Okay.
And so it was a little bit organic, but at that point, again, I still had not really begun to push or market
Hmm.
anything specifically.
Okay. Now today, now that your business is thriving, how do you gain clients now? Do they just do? Is it still like word of mouth they see in the area, or because I've talked to guys. You have some guys that does every door direct mailer. You have some guys they do when they stop, they hit all the five houses around them. Like, what is your method to just gain clients?
You know, that is one of the hardest questions to find a consistent answer on because, like you just mentioned,
Hmm.
some people will do the EDDM, the every door direct mail, and
Hmm.
some people do what they call their fiber rounds. And I think all of those things have a purpose and have a time and a place when you do that.
Okay.
Um, I will tell you there are two big things that I do to generate clients. And I'm not saying it's the best answer, but it seems to have been successful for
Hmm.
me. Number one is when it comes to marketing, I think the absolute most important way to market is to make sure that when you are on someone's lawn, you are doing, behaving, even down to the expression on your face is exactly what you want the neighbors to see.
Mm.
The client that you're servicing, you've already essentially convinced them. You're already doing the service. And I mean, not that you don't want to take care of them, but you've already essentially won them. But I think we know many of our neighbors. If we know any of our neighbors, or when someone's at someone else's house, you look out your window and you'll say, "Hey, who is that?
Hmm.
What are they doing?
Hmm.
I wonder where they're from." And you watch. And
Hmm.
so your neighbors watch you. And so I think that is the absolute most important way to market is making sure that everything you do on your current customer's property is attractive for those around them. And then when you go and knock on the door, or you drop off your fiber rounds, or when they need service, they will call the number on your truck or
Right.
they will approach you. So that's what I think is number one.
Hmm.
Number two, the second thing is if anyone has ever listened to Grant Cardone,
Hmm.
who is the real estate mogul guy in Florida,
Hmm.
he has a book called 10X. And this book essentially, if I could summarize it in a couple of words, he would simply say that whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whatever it is you think it's going to take to accomplish that, plan to exercise 10 times the amount of effort or time or strength or whatever it is. Plan to invest 10 times what you think it's going to take and do that in the same amount of time that you were planning to do it initially. So, in other words, in the fall, like this time of the year, I'm doing it right now, as a matter of fact.
Hmm.
Um, I send out postcards and flyers to the 10 closest houses around my current clients.
Mm.
But I've already serviced those clients for 7 or 8 months here in Oklahoma, and now they're getting my postcard. And I carry about 75 to 80 clients. And if that's 10 cards per client, then we
Hmm.
would say, all right, that's about 750 cards.
Hmm.
But Grant Cardone would say, you need to double, triple, quadruple down on those. So I will take those 750 cards and I will send them all out 5 times.
Okay. Okay.
So every fall, I order about 10,000 cards. And I know this sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not if you add it up or you do the math. And I'll do it for you really quickly. I
Hmm.
send out about 10,000 cards. When you add in postage and you add in the cards, it may cost me probably about $2,000
Mm.
to send out those 10,000 cards.
Right. Now,
Typically,
hmm
go for it.
oh
Go
yeah,
for it.
I
Go.
wanted to
So,
ask
what's
you,
your
Mr.
question?
Mark. Yeah, okay, like how you send those out, like you say, around your clients. Do you get the addresses like off Google Maps and send them yourself? Like, what is your method of actually sending it to them? Do you stick it in their door? Or?
So there's a shortcut to it. It
Mm-hmm.
does cost a little bit of money, but not a whole lot. I use the website Fiverr,
Okay.
and I will find someone on there who knows how to handle just basic admin search like this, and I will provide them not the name, but I will provide them with the address, and I will have them use. Typically, in most states, you can use a what do you call it? Here we call it the county assessor. If
Okay.
you put in an address, it will give you the addresses around it.
Okay.
And so you can simply go on the county assessor, put in your customer's address, and then it will give you all the addresses around it. So
Wow.
I will have someone do that research for me. That normally costs about $100, and they will go and list all the clients' addresses around your clients. And now you have a massive list of about 2,500 addresses.
Wow.
I take those and I will actually have that individual put them in like a little printer, uh, what do you call it? Like a printer label template.
Uh-huh.
It's just a little Word document. They will input that in there. That normally takes about a week for them to do. Costs about $100, and you'll get all these names.
Wow.
After I have all of that, I will send my postcards to the neighbors of my clients, and I'll send it out 5 times
No,
between January and February. And I'm
okay.
serious, it is an all hands-on mailing. My wife and my 3 sons were all labeling and stamping and everything.
Wow. Wow.
And the post office hates me when I come and drop all of those off. They're like, ah!
Now, let me ask you. You said you do it between January and February. You just like because you say you send it out the amount of times you send them out. You do it in between January and February.
In between January and February. So the
Wow.
people are either one of two things are going to happen. The neighbor is going to hate me so much that they're not going to call me, but they're not my customer anyway.
Right.
Or they will be so inundated that they'll say, man, if we need lawn care, why don't we call this guy?
Yep. Yep.
One or two things that happens. And so I figure it is a worthwhile investment because typically what I will see here in our area, here in Oklahoma, kind of the Midwest area, your best, most responsible, most dedicated, most loyal, most conscientious customer is calling you in January and February.
Wow.
So if my phone rings now and it's a client, I'm ready to take notes. I'm ready to make sure that this person that I win this client.
Mm.
And so the result typically is between January and the end of March.
Hmm.
Normally, we will gain about 25 to 35 new clients.
Wow.
And so that is normally, significantly more than the cost it takes to send these cards out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So Um, that's my way of trying to generate clients.
Mm.
And my goal really is to be able to have clients to pick and choose from. I still have a handful of clients that really I've had for years, but they may not be my optimal client. They may not be my
I
ideal
I
client.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And so, that's kind of how we approach gathering additional clients.
Okay.
So.
Now let me ask you this. Like now that you have the gaining clients now, how did you go about getting your prices dialed in right? Because I hear a lot of guys have a problem because when you first start, you have this one price, and now where you're at the stage at now in your business, how did you transition from the beginning pricing stage to getting your prices dialed in today?
Micah, that's a really, really good question. So I'm going to try and be brief. You can already tell it's hard for me to be brief,
Oh,
but
you're
I'm going
fine.
to try and be brief. I'm going to tell you one of my least favorite comments that I see on social media.
Mhm.
And if you'll permit me to stand on my soapbox just a little
Go
bit,
ahead.
is you will see the person on social media and they'll have a picture and they'll say, "Hey, hey, family, how much would you guys charge for this?"
Uh-huh.
And then you'll see all of these estimates come, in response to his question. And it'll be somebody in Pennsylvania, someone in Miami, someone down there in Mississippi, someone in Minnesota, and then you'll have some guy out in Palo Alto, San Francisco, who's charging 75 times more than the rest of us. And you're like, that doesn't help. But I see that question, and the reason it bothers me is because there is someone who could charge half of what I charge and make a larger profit,
Mm-hmm.
and there's someone who could charge double what I charge and make less profit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What matters is that the person has to know their own numbers and say, I need this amount to break even,
Mm-hmm.
or I need this amount in order to get one step closer to my goal for this year or this quarter or this season.
Mm-hmm.
And so the starting point really does have to be that as lawn care business owners, we need to have already sat down with our wives, with our family, with our significant other, or just by ourselves and have decided what our dreams are,
Mm.
what we want to accomplish, why we want to do that, and some way of measuring that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get ready to actually price something, I have a worksheet that I use, and it's actually, have I sent it? I don't think I've ever sent it out, but it's called the um, I think I call it like the profit, the seamless profit calculator is what I call it. But essentially, what I do, and once you do it once, you never have to do it again. You just have to kind of update it from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But it lists all of my business expenses:
Mm-hmm.
storage, estimated gasoline expenses, the CRM that we use, everything, how many times it bills you, and everything. So you list all of your expenses for the entire year in order to keep your doors open.
Right.
And so let's say it's going to cost a business $25,000 just to keep the business open and pay for all the expenses and maintenance and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look over there, and this little calculator will do it for it. It will do it for you. You look at how many hours you're available to work
Mm-hmm.
throughout that entire season, and how much you're going to pay yourself, how much you're going to pay your helper. And what it's going to tell you to do, it's going to say, for all of your available hours that your business is going to be open this year, in order to pay yourself what you want to pay and to keep your business open, it'll come down to a certain figure. And let's say your business needs to charge $85 for every single hour that it's open.
Okay.
So now it's easy to price something. You walk up there, you say, hey, this is going to take me 2 hours. In order to keep my business open and to pay myself, I need to charge at least $160 per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you know the job is, it may take you 2 hours, but there's going to be a little bit of extra uh, driving, or maybe you have to even, there's something else that's involved. At least you know what the minimum is you have to charge, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe you do add in something else that's kind of an inconvenience for you having to do it, or taking on this property before you take on that one because they want it done sooner. But you add all of those things in, at least you know for certain how much you need to charge.
Right.
And once you build that calculator, it's very easy. So when I go out and I say I'm going to be out for 10 hours,
Mm-hmm.
10 hours today, I obviously can't come home until I've made, using the example that I said, if it's $85 an hour, you can't come home unless your business has made $850.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will give you a starting point of how much you need to bill. And of course, you want to add in your profit, your savings, and then maintenance and things like that. But those kind of things you can estimate once you know the minimum you have to keep your business open,
Mm-hmm.
to keep yourself paid.
Wow. And I think that's going to help a lot of people, man, the way you just broke that down.
If people see it, I think it really will be. It's something that actually I got from someone else, and then have kind of added on my own thing
Mm-hmm.
to it and kind of built upon it to make it my own. But it really is something simple, and it's a little bit time consuming to do the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But once you have it in there, it's easy peasy.
Right. And you, like you said, it may be time consuming, but it's good to carve out the time if you want a successful business.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Now let me ask
oh
you.
yeah.
I heard you say, like everybody knows when you have equipment, you have to store it. Um, do you
Yes,
like? Okay, let me ask you this, because you'll have three different guys. You'll have a guy that works out of his house. You'll have a guy that works out of a storage unit. Then you'll have a guy that go out and buy a shop. What do you think is
sure,
what's more beneficial for the company if you versus all three? What do you recommend?
sure, sure. Um, I've just like just like you said, I've seen people that do all three of those,
Mm-hmm.
and I think each one is fine as long as a person is at the proper stage in their
Okay.
business.
Okay.
I still operate partially out of my home and partially out of
Mm-hmm.
a storage
Mm-hmm.
shed or unit. I don't own my own shop yet,
Mm-hmm.
but that is something that we have talked about.
Right.
And even when you get into doing something like your own shop, there are extra benefits from just having a place where someone can come and work on something. They can take it all apart and leave it there and not have to worry about putting it back up and storing it. So, you know,
Right.
there's some definitely some benefits to doing that, but I honestly think, Micah, it's going to depend on where the person is at in the growth of their business.
Okay.
You know,
That
so
that makes
um,
sense. That
yeah.
makes sense. Now let me ask you this. Uh, I see you do weed control and also fertilization. What made you dive into that side of the business along with landscaping and shrub trimming and all? Because you can put on so many hats. What made you decide to
Yes,
dive on that side of the business?
yes. So I'll tell you the answer that I like to give, and then I'll tell you the truth. So the answer I like to give is that when my dad and I were young, when I was young, my dad would always have the best yard on the block, and he actually did.
Hmm.
And he would, keep it fertilized, keep it weeded, and everything. But now that I think back, when I'm over there with him now, and I look at what he's doing, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's nothing. He doesn't even follow what he should be. He doesn't follow any specifications. He just puts it out there whenever he wants to. Um, but the truth about it is that I've always wanted to do it, but I was actually scared because I didn't know a whole lot about it. And
Hmm.
I found a guy, one of my best helpers is named Brian, and that was his background. And so when I talked to him about it, I was like, hey, I've always wanted to do this. And he said, well, he basically knows all there is to know about it of
Wow.
timing and timing, temperature, the right chemical, what can be mixed and when it can be mixed and things like that. And so I basically learned everything from him.
Mm.
And that's kind of his domain in my business. I pretty much let him oversee that and decide, hey, it's time to do this. We need this. We don't need that. If we can afford it and he says for us to buy it, that's what we buy.
Right.
So it's really more one of those things. I think many customers will ask if you do this, if you can take care of weeds, if you can make their lawn green, if you can do that. And that just seems to come right alongside the mowing and flower bed maintenance and things like that. So I wanted to be sure I could give my customer a response.
Wow. That's good, man.
So,
Being the being the only man on the property that's taking care of everything. Because I've seen guys where one guy cut the yard and you have another guy doing the landscaping, and it just
yes,
it causes
yes,
some confusion. Now, out of all of those,
yes.
which one do you think is your bread and butter? Is it the grass cutting? Is it the fertilization? Is it the landscaping? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. I like it all.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, my favorite is still probably mowing,
Mm.
but mowing is probably the least profitable, and there's probably more, you know, competition in the
Mowing.
mowing
Yeah.
arena. But I think it is the funnest. It's the most fun, and I think you get the most immediate satisfaction out of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if I had to choose where I was going to work one day, I'd probably go with the mow crew.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as most profitable, weed control and fertilization is probably the most profitable. You just have to make sure you find a good place to source your chemical,
Mm-hmm.
and then make sure you're using it properly. And it can definitely be profitable, especially if you're good at it.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Let me
that's
ask you
kind of
this
been
as
my
well.
take on
I've seen also on your Instagram that you use a dump insert. What was the advantage over a
that.
dump insert versus a dump trailer?
So this is a point of humility that I try. I actually feel really badly when I go to the dump because I know how I used to feel.
Uh-huh.
I know how I used to feel, and so I will pull up there, and I try not to look at the guys and try and just go and get it done quickly and leave because I know how I felt. So before I got the dump, we would bag everything,
Hmm.
and we would load our truck down with 40 and 50 bags, and it was just heavy, and I had to do one of two things. I had to drive around town at a different times of the day to try and find a dumpster where I could dump them in.
Hmm.
And so I was constantly trying to find a new place because someone would say, "Don't dump here, you can't dump there." If there was a sign and it said "Don't dump there," it was like, okay, I can't dump there, so I wouldn't dump there. But then you'd find some place off in the corner in the far back place of some, strip mall or, a grocery store or, a big apartment complex that has tons of dumps. And we would go and we just throw all the bags in there.
Hmm.
But I got so tired of doing that and I got more and more clients, it
Hmm.
got more difficult to do that. And so I had to start paying a lot of money to go to the local dump and do it.
Wow.
The first day convinced me. I got there and the lady said, "You can dump here, but you have to empty the bags." And I thought, oh my, so I had to tear the bags open and I was emptying them. And a guy pulled up next to me. And Micah, I'm not kidding. He pulled up, he got out of his truck, he hooked up the chains, so that the dump doesn't fall all the way open. He hooked up the chains, he got in his truck, he backed up, dumped it all out. He put the dump back down, put on the chains, and he drove off. And I was not through the second bag, and he had dumped a dump bed bigger and more grass than I had, and he was gone.
Mm.
And I thought, now that is the way to do this. And so I couldn't get one the first season,
Hmm.
and I kind of started looking around, see if I could find one used. And people said, no, you don't want to get one used. You never know how it's been treated. And so I finally bought one new. I followed Brian's lawn maintenance, the guy out of Michigan,
Hmm.
and I went and got that dump. And then the first time I went and used it, I pulled up there and there were some guys emptying the bags, and I thought, oh man, I know how that feels. So I just drove around to the other side where they couldn't see me and just dumped it and left because I know how that feels, and I hated spending all of that time emptying the bags.
Hmm.
And so that's what kind of came along, and it really does allow me to, if I need to get lots of mulch, or if I need to get some rocks, or if I need to get lots of compost, I can get that and just dump it right on a person's, uh, put it on their driveway or put it, somewhere in their yard,
Hmm.
and we can move it around pretty easy.
Hmm.
So it really makes the difference. It's a difference of day and night.
Right. That does make sense. Let me ask you this: what's one thing in this business you had to learn the hard way?
One thing I had to learn the hard way. Does it count if I'm still learning it? I know that I'm inefficient at it. Um, the the thing that I had to learn the hard way is honestly seeing myself as a business owner and not an employee.
Mm,
That was probably the hardest thing.
mm,
Um, there's a brief conversation. It may turn into a training at some point that I'm putting together, but I call it the entrepreneur mindset.
mm.
There you have to get to a point where, and you know, part of doing the hard work of knowing your numbers, part of doing the hard work of trying to come up with a impressive marketing strategy or dealing with customers that are complaining after you've really done everything that you can do. After you've done all that, it kind of builds up a slightly tougher skin,
Mm-hmm.
so you can look at it, you can look a person in the eye, and when you know what that's really going to cost you and what you have to have, you can offer them a price. And if they say that's too high, you don't feel obligated to change it or try and meet them halfway. You can simply say, oh, Ms. Jones, I can understand. You're right. $500 is a lot of money, and not everyone's a good fit for
Right.
us, but that is what it costs, and I would love to knock that out for you. I know you're going to enjoy it, and I know you're going to blah blah blah. We could get it done for you tomorrow. You don't have to wait. So it's really up to you. The ball's in your court. We're ready to move on this. So just let us know how you'd like us to proceed, and we can do it.
Right.
And at the beginning, if someone said that was too high, I'd say, oh well, maybe we can do this, or maybe we can do that, and I wasn't comfortable wearing the hat of the business owner and an entrepreneur. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's probably the hardest thing.
Okay. That man, that
Oh,
makes sense because you have a lot of guys they kind of backpedal when the clients kind of give them pushback. And
yeah.
let me ask you this: like, what made you start the academy? Because I've seen you advertise that on your page. What what made you
hmm
start doing that, trying to educate people?
Um, I'll try and tread lightly here because I don't want to be offensive to anyone. But the reality of it is that so my second language or first language, I guess I'm fluent in Spanish as well, and
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the questions I get comes from the Spanish speaking clientele,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the questions I get are people who are starting very, very, very new.
Mm.
um, they some of the questions I get may be like, hey, should I just do this on my own or should I start a business? And you're like, you got to start a business. It's much safer,
Mm-hmm.
liability and things like that. Or I've had people say, well, this customer didn't pay me right away, and I don't know if they're going to pay me, so I'm going to go back over to their house. I'm going to mess up the lawn because they didn't
Right.
pay
Right.
me. And I'm thinking, that is a very new business operation perspective. It's like, even if they didn't pay you and you mess up the lawn, all you're doing is ruining the possibility of you ever growing your business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would hate to try and overcome a negative Google review that truthfully pointed out that I went and destroyed someone's lawn because I was mad.
Right.
It's like that's going to be a battle. And so I would get questions like that from, I think, oftentimes some of the people that I knew and ran across. There were business operational questions, and then sometimes it was just personal, cultural interaction type questions that they would ask me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, my wife is originally from Mexico City,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're kind of in that position where people just seem to come and ask us questions about how things are supposed to be done, and I mean just in a very general sense. And so we have always kind of been in a position to where we're answering questions or trying to help someone do something that may seem pretty straightforward
Mm-hmm.
to myself or to my wife, may seem pretty basic and pretty simple. And so that was kind of the impetus of the academy, because people ask questions. How do you price this? Where do you get your customers?
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy tell me he just wanted to buy a simple big box store riding lawnmower for his business. And he said, well, Mark, it's so much cheaper. And I said, hey, I totally understand. I was like, maybe if you're going to use it for a season or two, there's a time and a place to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to start your business, I would recommend getting a full-blown commercial
Mm-hmm.
piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about to do it, and we went to our local commercial shop here, and the the owner, his daughter works there. Her name is Heather, nice as can be, knows
Mm-hmm.
everything there is to know about equipment. And I said, hey, Heather, he wants to buy something from the big box store. Can you tell him why he should or shouldn't?
Right.
And she had the best example ever. She said, do you see this mower here? I was like, yeah. And then she pulled up one on the computer, the one from the big box store. She said, this mower on here from the big box store is designed to mow about 1 or 2 lawns a week. It's for the residential person that's going to mow their lawn on the weekends.
Right.
She said that's 52 mowings a year, and this mower will probably last 3 or 4 seasons. Then she went over to the commercial equipment and she said, now, buddy, this lawnmower right here is designed to mow 15 to 20 lawns by lunchtime,
Right.
and it's designed to last 4 or 5 years.
Right. Right.
So then he thought, and he started looking at the price, and then you start adding up the price, and the commercial equipment is significantly cheaper
Right.
over the long haul. And so little questions like that, Micah, I would just say I get questions like that all the time. And I'm serious, Micah, I don't have all the answers. And I feel like I'm still new, and I feel like I don't know, and I scratch my head and I make all these mistakes. But people continue asking, and it seems like when they ask, I kind of have an answer sometimes. So I thought we need to make this available to people. And so that was my goal behind the academy, is just to answer those simple questions all in one place that people have, and kind of propel others into the lawn care business. And lastly, change the perception of the lawn care industry, make it more professional,
Right.
kind of communicate to customers that there are lots of honest, hardworking lawn care people out there. So
It is.
that's my rant on that.
It truly is. Now, Mr. Mark, where do you see your business in 5 years, and then where do you see it in 10 years?
So my plan, and as a business owner, I'm serious. I have a new plan every other day, it seems like. But no, there is a kind of a long-term trajectory, I would say. I may not have the perfect, but the long-term trajectory right now, I would like to continue doing the what we call lawn and landscape maintenance
Mm-hmm.
of part of the business. And we in my area, we have a lot of churches here,
Mm-hmm.
and I take care of the church where my family and I attend.
Mm-hmm.
And when I service the church, you really do, as a believer, I really do feel like I'm helping them to save money, to be good stewards
Mm-hmm.
of the finances that they've been given. I feel like that I'm kind of collaborating with them to really honor what they've been entrusted with. And in the end, it may be a long arc, but in the end, I would be totally honest with you, make the Lord look good.
Right. I agree
And
with that.
so if there's a way I could expand into a lot of the local churches here and really make a big, strong effort into helping them manage their budgets. And this is just the way we've always operated, we try and really nail down what the client needs and what the client wants. We try hard not to just sell them on something because, there's a spot we can put a tree in there, and that tree runs, $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We don't try and do that. We try and do exactly what they need and exactly what they want, and that really seems to be consistent with what many of the churches here locally try and do as far as managing their budget, managing the finances. And I think the Patriot side of the business, is a good fit to do that. So that's the plan, really, to continue growing in that area. And we would like to have more trailers and more workers just doing that.
Wow, that's awesome, Mr. Mark. That's awesome.
So that's our plan.
All right,
That's our plan.
handful of more questions,
So,
and I'm gonna get you out of here, Mr. Mark.
oh, you're fine. You're fine. This is
Okay.
fun.
Now let me ask you this. Uh, are there? I've heard you mention Grant, so I'm assuming you already read because I heard you say the book 10x. What other books do you?
Uh-huh.
What other books do you read, or other motivational speakers you listen to?
Micah, there's one book, well, there's two, but there's one that comes to mind first, and I cannot stress it enough. If you haven't read it, I'd go download it today and start reading it, listening to it, whatever. It's called Profit First by Michael Michalowicz.
Okay, profit first.
And Profit First, yes.
Okay.
And I will tell you why, because we all know, and you have to hear his story for it to really stick,
Mm-hmm.
because a good story always sticks much better than someone just telling you, historical facts and details. If they tell you the story behind it, it seems to be more interesting. But the idea behind Profit First is, it recognizes that as we manage our businesses, before we get organized with managing our funds, you're constantly doing what we call bank book balance bookkeeping. So
Mm.
you open up your phone or you go online and you look at your bank account balance. You say, okay, I think I have enough. I need to go get this piece of equipment. So you go buy that piece of equipment. And then 2 days later, you look in there again. You're like, man, I got to pay this helper. So I think okay, I got enough to pay him. But it's at any point in time, you're going to forget that the mower payment comes due or the insurance comes due, or if you're using, your CRM comes due and that comes out, and then the credit card payment comes due. And before you know it, your bank account's at $75 and you got a bill that's $275 and two more coming behind that one.
Right. Right.
So to avoid that, what Profit First makes you do, it will force you to decide what you want to earn as a business owner first,
Mm-hmm.
and then make your business operate around your income.
Okay.
So many times what people will do, $5,000 comes in to the business, and then they pay all the business expenses, they pay all of the bills, and then they say, okay, I have, $500 left over for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this would say beforehand, you need to decide what percentage is going to be yours as the owner.
Mm.
And so when that $1,000 comes into the bank account, you say, well, 20% is mine, so 200 is mine. I have 800 left over to spend on the business. And
Right.
you make your business operate after it makes the owner profitable.
That
And
makes
so
sense.
it takes the idea of profit first kind of being the way you operate your business and the finances. And that's been revolutionary for me.
Okay. That's awesome. Now let me ask
Profit
you
first.
Profit First by Mike McCallowitz. Y'all go check that out.
Yes, sir.
Let me
Yes,
ask you
sir.
this, Mr. Mark. I seen a post you made. It said there's no traffic jams on the extra mile. Explain that to me.
That is true. No traffic jams on the extra mile. Yeah, I posted that a while back. Um, so when I go out to visit a client, remember how I said our goal is to really try and determine what they need.
Uh-huh.
You get some clients, like some people can request a quote via the website, and you get their information and they've kind of already told you, hey, I want weekly mowing and weed control and fertilization. So you already pretty much know what they want. But when it comes to the extra mile, the idea behind that is your customer needs to believe or needs to feel or at least needs to think that your first, if your primary goal, your first priority, your primary interest is in serving them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a concept that I use in the business, and it kind of goes back to the idea that, well, what I mentioned before about serving a higher cause. And I think if we are truly trying to serve our clients, we will view ourselves as, and this is, I don't want to be too churchy here, but I do want to tell the truth, and that is, as a believer, I'm a minister first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on mission, and the work that I do, if I do it for the right purpose, work done the right way can be worship.
Right.
And I believe that when that is done, your clients will perceive that not only do you go the extra mile, you go the third, fourth, and fifth mile to make sure that they are taken care of. And so that is kind of there's no traffic jams on the extra mile. If you really are trying to serve that client, and it doesn't mean that you get walked over, but if you're really trying to serve that client and you go the extra mile for them, you won't find any competition.
That's true. That is true.
You won't find any competition. And I have told my workers that work with me, anybody can mow our clients' grass.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can do it. And arguably, there's probably somebody that can mow way better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not in the business of mowing yards. I'm in the business of solving problems.
Mm.
And so what they get, and this goes into every quote that I send out, what they get from Patriot Outdoors, they get a consistent, regular, reoccurring service day. So their service day is going to be Wednesday every week.
Mm-hmm.
If they call us, either I'm going to answer the phone, my wife is going to answer the phone, or we're going to call them back the same day.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what we try and do. We're going to call them back the same day. And if there's something that we cannot do or something that we are unable to do or we're not prepared to do, we are either going to recommend someone that's reliable or we're going to go do the research and find someone who can do it.
Wow.
And so if we're really solving problems for them, I don't believe they are going to expect my client is going to leave me to go find someone else because they're $2 cheaper. It's going to be too much of an uphill battle for them to train that new service provider to do what Patriot has done already.
Right. Right.
And that's what I mean by the extra mile. There's not a lot of traffic on there. When you are serving your customer like they mean something to you and they are your first priority,
Mm-hmm.
You won't find a lot of competition.
Right.
So,
right.
So that's a long-winded answer, but that's what I think.
Now let me ask you something. Now in lawn care, this is typical. Have you broken a window before in lawn care?
I'm trying to count. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4. I can think of at least 5.
I think the first one you kind of be shell shocked, and afterwards it just comes with the business.
Yeah, I felt bad. I'll tell you one story. I felt bad when I broke one, not because I broke it, but I felt bad because of everything that I just told you. It sounds very, I'm nowhere near perfect, and I get tired and say stuff under my breath that I probably shouldn't say, and feel like, I have to try and keep myself, under control. But after everything I said to you right then about being nice and trying to, go the extra mile, I felt bad because I broke the window and the homeowner came out, and I already have a number on speed dial. Here we call it, the company called Glass Doctor, and they're a little bit more pricey. But if I call them, they will get someone out the same day to measure and at least put some wood over it if they don't have the glass already. But they'll get someone out the same day.
Right.
So the customers are like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with this? and since I've broken so many windows, I think I came off like I didn't care because I wasn't really worried about it. And I was like, okay, well, hang on, let me get the phone. I'm calling someone. Yeah, hi, so this is Mark. Can you get Bob to come out here? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I'm like, all right, well, they'll be out here next week. They're going to get it done. And she's like, freaking out. And I think I kind of came off as I didn't care. And so I didn't mean to do that, but yeah, I broke my share of windows many times.
Right. I think a lot of guys have. Now,
yes, sir.
Now let me ask you this, Mr. Mark. If you can go back, out of all the knowledge you have gained, if you can go back to day one of you starting your business, or if somebody else is on day one, what is one piece of advice you would give them?
Start from day one. One piece of advice I would give them. There's a lot, but what's one? I would. I think I would say be prepared. Be prepared for it to be harder than you thought. Be prepared for it to be harder than you think it's going to be. Have you ever heard anyone, and I cannot tell you how many times I've heard someone say this, and it's a variation of this phrase, but tell me if you've ever heard anyone say this, Micah. Yeah, I think I'm going to start mowing some lawns, and you know what? I'm just going to go out there and start mowing and kind of, build it up, and then once I get some customers, then I'll probably work on that and do that full time and quit my full time job.
Yeah.
They say it like I'm going to go out there and just build it up. Right. They say like I'm going to go build it up, like they're just going to go out there and mow, and everything's just going to build itself up, just by itself.
Right.
And I think I would just say prepare for it to be longer and harder than you think, but it really is more fulfilling than you probably think.
Right.
So
that's true. That's true.
I can think of any number of times that you go and you kind of cringe, but you really don't want to do this project, but so here in Oklahoma, most residential homes have a 7-foot fence. It's a 7-foot wooden, either pine or cedar fence, and they have just the 8-foot sections, and they divide. That's pretty standard anywhere you go. And I walked into a backyard, or someone called me to do it, and this was before I knew how to measure it online. This is way at the very beginning. But I walked over to the gate, and I opened the gate to walk in the backyard, and it was a wall. There was a wall of grass. The grass was exactly 7 feet tall, that it was just under the entire height of the fence. And so to walk through there, you would have felt like you were walking through like a cornfield or something like that. It was that tall.
Wow.
And I thought, there's no way I can mow this. So I went and I called my buddy who's been doing lawn care for many, 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 many years and owns, he owns a really big company. He's everything that you see on TV that you think, man, I could do that someday. Wow. Big time. He said, Mark, just figure out how long it's going to take you and charge them. Give them that estimate. Yep. And I struggled so hard to give them the proper price because I wasn't in a place where I could tell them, hey, this is what it's going to cost. I felt so bad. And so those are some of the things that you have to get over. And the sooner you do, the better.
Right. That's true. Now, Mr. Mark, let me ask you this. I talked with a guy. He said, and just give me your honest opinion on this. He said, "Man, my phone constantly rings. I have enough work. Why do I need a website?"
Oh man. I hope he doesn't listen to this because I don't want to make him
Hey, be honest.
feel bad.
Be honest.
He said his phone constantly rings
This is what he told me.
and he has enough business.
Right. He said, "Go." He said, "Google my
But
business is free." He said, "Google my business is free. My phone rings. I advertise. I got more work than I need. Why do I need a website?"
so I'm never going to throw shade on someone if they are truly content with where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is true, I'm not going to disparage that. However, my suspicion, and just being totally honest, my suspicion is that if he could do exactly what he does right now,
Mm-hmm.
the exact same amount of work, and generate 2.5 times the amount of revenue that he's generating right now,
Mm-hmm.
I think he would say yes to that. I don't think he would turn that down and say, I prefer to continue doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I kind of say it like you've heard the story where people say, well, you've seen this online where people will say, I'm having so many people call me, I can't keep up with the work and I'm falling behind. And then I stay up really late calling people back on the phone, trying to keep up with quotes. And there really is a time and a place for that because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and
Mm-hmm.
it can happen at any time. But if that's really the case, the natural answer is to raise your prices.
Right. Right.
And you will have people self-select or self-decide not to go with your business, and the people that will be left to accept your service will be the people who are happy with your higher price.
Mm.
And so naturally what would happen is if he's really in that position, I think it really means he's just foregoing foregoing additional revenue that he could generate with the
Mm.
same amount of work.
Mm. I see what you're saying.
So I have a friend who just, I mean, we have that exact same conversation. We meet every so often to talk about business, and he doesn't have a website.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, I would really consider getting a website. And he said, oh, Mark, but that feels like a big step. And I said, it is. It really is a big step in your business if you don't have a website. But I said, all of those customers out there that have the extremely nice properties that don't really care about the price that you charge them. They want you to be reliable, responsive, and trustworthy, and they're willing to pay for that. That customer would expect you to have a website.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, there are things that come up certain times in certain places whereby it's like, hey, you know what? I need to charge extra for this, or I want to do something nice for my employees. And we do have a handful of clients that will just say, hey, Mark, it's so hot out here today. Take the guys to lunch on me.
Wow.
And I want that type of customer that wants to care for my guys and care for me like that when we're out there. So
Right.
that would be my opinion.
I got you. It makes sense. Now, last question, Mr. Mark, before I get you out here. Who's been your biggest supporter this far?
Who's been my biggest supporter? How do you mean? Do you mean person in my life? Do you mean like software? Or do you mean like just
everybody
what would
normally
you
say,
say?
well, you'll have some people say, oh, my wife's been my biggest supporter. Well, I mean like in business. Who's been holding you accountable in business? Hey, man, you're doing this wrong. Let's do it like this. Like, who's been your biggest supporter?
Yeah. There's a guy who I grew up with, and his name is, or maybe he won't want me to say his name,
Right. You don't
but
have to say his name.
there's a guy I grew up with, and he owns a very large landscaping company. They're large, they're lucrative, they do everything. And it's everything you would see on like a website and that you see on TV and things like that that you see advertised on YouTube, but
Hmm.
they're even larger.
Wow.
And I remember when he started, I remember when we were in high school, way before I got started in high school, and he was pushing around a mower in the neighborhood, and he was mowing a person's lawn, and he'd write down in his paper $27 and, whatever it may be,
Hmm.
and he charged that customer. And I remember when he got started, he has probably been my biggest support that if I ask him a question right now, he is not afraid to say, Mark, that is stupid, or Mark, that's a great idea, or I would do it this way or that way. And I always get honesty from him. And he's done everything that I'd like to do.
Wow.
And so I appreciate having him as a contact. And I think he's been right just about every single time he's told me to do something or to not do something. So,
All right.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Now, Mr. Mark, if you want to plug your socials or how people can actually take that academy course you have, if you want to put your information
Well,
out here.
the best way to probably get a hold is going to be probably via Instagram
Hmm.
and a Lawn Care Growth Academy. We really only got started with that probably the end or probably the fall.
Hmm.
And so we're still working on getting a lot of things up there, but it is called lawncaregrowthacademy.net. And there are some free products on there. There's some products there that actually have a small cost to them, but we are working on finalizing that actual course that we we are calling from dream to six figures, and really just kind of walk a person through that individual development, through the business development, money managing and marketing, and we'll really walk a person through how to start, grow and scale a lawn care business. And yeah, I'm excited to get it out there, but we are still working on it, finalizing some pieces. So the best thing to do would be to sign up for that and get on the wait list. And as
Hmm.
soon as it's ready to go, you will get an email and you'll know when, hey, it's ready to go.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So,
And hey,
so I want to thank you, Michael, for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity to just talk. And I enjoy
yes,
doing this. And yeah, I learned so much from other people. And I feel like I didn't ask you enough, but you kind of focused on me. But we should do this again.
right. And that's what I want the audience to see, man. Other people's perspective on how they run their business. Like that nugget you gave on how to find your number, man. That was, how to find your operating number. Like, man, that was some
Yeah,
good jewels. If anybody's listening, man, I'm sure they can learn quite a bit from this episode.
I have some. I think I have that somewhere. I will, believe it or not, if you will send me, you can text me later your email address or your contact information, and
Hmm.
if you'd like, I can uh, send it to you so you can kind of look at it and things like that. And yeah, I'd be happy for you to promote that and show some other people that, because it really is something that once I saw it, I was like, this is magic. I'm never going to let go of this thing. And it's extremely helpful. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Yes,
be
sir.
happy for you to look at it.
We'll do that. I
So,
send that email to you.
all right. All
Again,
right. Well,
again, I appreciate it, Mr. Mark.
thank you. I appreciate it, Mike. I appreciate the phone call. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You take care. Bye bye.
All right, bye. Let's give that guy a round of applause, y'all. When you start a business, you do not know the journey that you will partake. This guy started a business. Now he's working on his academy for lawn care that to teach you to go from zero to six figures. This is awesome. The journey you go on when you start a business, the knowledge you gain. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. You never know what's waiting on you when you decide to go on your own personal journey to start a business or whatever it is. It sounds like to me this guy's real passionate about what he does. But hey, I'm your host, Michael Gibson. Thanks for tuning in from the Valley to the Mountaintop podcast. Maybe you will be the next guest. and then we can discuss your business. Or if you want to just stay and listen to everybody else be great, that's fine too. But why won't you be great? This is 2025. Are you going to let another year go by before you decide to be great? Will you be great in 2026? Will you be great in 2027? Or will you make that decision to be great today? The decision is yours. Be a game changer. World's already full of players. Catch y'all on the next one.